This show is proudly supported by Habitats at Home, Australia's leading PVC reptile enclosure specialist. Check them out on Instagram and Facebook at Habitats at Home, and be sure to visit habitatsathome.com.au if you're in the market for a new PVC reptile enclosure or other reptile accessories. Massive thanks to Tyson over at Habitats at Home. We'd like to thank our podcast sponsor, Varana Bay, reimagining reptile keeping through innovation. They combine quality, design, and function to create high-end 3D printed reptile products. And if you've got a unique setup or problem, they'll craft a custom solution made just for you. Check them out on Instagram at Varana Bay. This show is proudly supported by Dan from Red Earth Reptiles. If you want to drool over some of the best looking green tree pythons in the country, check out Dan on Instagram at red_earth_reptiles. G'day and welcome to Under the Heat Lamp with Joe Mack. I hope today is episode number 47. I believe it is. I should just get better at this, but anyway. Today I'm with Jamieson Brodie. How's it going, Jamieson?
Good, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I'm super pumped.
I'm happy to have you here, mate. I'm not so happy about how much better your background looks than mine, but that's okay. We'll move on from that. For anyone listening who might not be familiar with you, would you mind giving us a bit of a rundown on your history with reptiles?
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about this earlier today before coming on. This year in August, I would have been keeping or working with reptiles for 20 years, which is crazy. Since I was 7 years old, I got my first blue tongue, and I've still got her. She's actually just over here, a couple of meters from me, so she's still kicking, which is awesome. So as a kid, I think I grew up like everyone else, right? We were all dinosaur kids. One of the biggest sort of things on TV when I was young was Steve Irwin, right? He was on Channel 7 and turning his TV on, and he was there, and he was this guy running around, feeding saltwater crocodiles, and I was like, Mum, that's what I want to do when I get older. And I think my parents were like, God, I hope that's a phase, like he'll grow out of it and get into dirt bikes or something like that.
Something cheaper like dirt bikes.
yeah, just something, footy, I don't know.
Anything.
Anything else. And then, it was when I was, probably just before I turned 7, I was still holding on to it, and I wanted a snake and I wanted a lizard, and local pet shops had snakes, and I was always going down and having a look at them. And I think my parents just caved, and they reached out to a reptile breeder at the time who supplied my first lizard. And as you know, that's a pretty sort of slippery slope when you first get into reptiles. I was from a blue tongue to a bearded dragon to a children's python, and then it was 2 children's pythons that bred, and then I was selling babies, making pocket money, and then spending that on sort of more reptiles. And then I feel like keeping wise, my private keeping went through a few different stages. Like I was really into the basics. I had Prince Regent Kimberley blue tongues, and I had small monitor species. And then we moved into jungle carpets, and then it was black-headed pythons. And then I went through a real phase of just small cryptic dragon species, crested dragons, long-nosed dragons, red-barred dragons, for a long time. And then getting older, as I sort of studied, I knew I wanted to get into zookeeping. I knew that I needed experience working with elapids and venomous snakes. And I think I was 16 when I did my venomous snake handling course, and then went down that route, which is also a bit of a slippery slope as well, right? Because you're trying to get your feel for what you like. Some people love death adders, some people like coastal taipan. It's all a bit different. So worked with a whole bunch of species. And then when I turned 18, got my first zookeeping role, but I don't know how much you want me to talk about that now. We can get into it a bit later on.
Yeah, let's do it now. How did the zookeeping journey begin?
Yeah, so I think I've got to backtrack a little bit and talk about school. So when I was
for sure.
Obviously 12 years old, started at Lilydale High School, which at the time had a reptile program. What it looked like back then was sort of one portable with sort of zoo style exhibits set up in it, and it was run by a crazy teacher named Marcus. And that program basically started because he was a passionate reptile keeper at home, and he'd bring in his pet carpet python to the science classes and things like that, and the students loved it. And they gave him an old storeroom. It was like a wood tech room. It had like a big storeroom on the back, and they said you can have this storeroom and keep whatever reptiles you want at the school, and you can utilize them in the classes. And that turned into, a couple of tanks, and it was all, we've filled the room, and then we sort of branched out. And at the time, the school got a big grant to build new wood tech facilities, and then that whole portable became sort of void. It didn't do anything, and they said you can build your exhibits in there, and that's what he did. So we had heaps of stuff in there, which you look back on, it's crazy, like from angle-headeds to turtle species to Spencer's monitors to Mertens to Lacey's. It was awesome. So I started there, when I was 12, and then in 2014, a couple of years after that, it actually, unfortunately, we had a fire, every reptile keeper's worst nightmare, which wiped out majority of that school's collection. It was a huge hit. So that was in 2014. And then we basically did a heap of fundraising and got some money to rebuild a new building. And we fitted that out and got in a whole bunch of species. And I think it was a bittersweet moment because the new facility just pivoted that room, right? We had actual like plumbed enclosures. We weren't draining the Mertens tank with a dustpan and brush. You were
Yeah.
things had valves and opened, and it was incredible, right? It was groundbreaking at the time. Um, and then probably in 2018, we got a grant from the local government to improve schools in our area. And we got, it was just under about sort of $6 million to build a zoological facility, which was crazy. And that's what you see now. So when you look up, plug for Lilydale High School's Reptile House, when you look up that facility, that's where that money came from. And myself, Marcus at the time, and my mum was on the school council board. We all kind of, I guess, because it was a bit of a conflict of interest. Now that you think about it, we just pivoted it towards to reptiles and how can we make this the best for the students. And that was just next level. There's now freshwater crocodiles in that program. There's kids working with scrub python, and there's just some crazy species there, and it's awesome. So that was like, I guess, pedigree, right? For zookeeping, you sort of kept at home as a kid, and then through high school, I got to work with species I couldn't keep at home in my bedroom, right? I can't keep a lace monitor pair. I can't work with Mertens and things like that. And then in 2018, I got my first job working at a private zoo, and my kind of perspective and everything opened up once more. Now I'm working with kangaroos and wombats and quolls and wedge-tailed eagles and macaws and all this sort of stuff that was new to me, and it was super exciting. But I definitely found reptiles were the thing, right? I just kept coming back to them, and it was just such a great time in my life. And then probably in
Before
2020,
we get too
yeah, you go.
far, I do want to
Yeah,
talk about
please.
Lilydale. I can't believe we've gotten this far into the whole podcast. The podcast has been around for almost a year now, and we haven't mentioned Lilydale at all, I
Yeah,
think. So
yeah.
did you go to Lilydale knowing that there was a reptile program, or was it gonna be your school
Uh,
anyway?
Yep. Yeah, we knew that the program was there. So I actually knew Marcus, who ran that program, before I worked there, because I used to have a stall at the good old Victorian Herpetological Society's expo, and I used to sell lizards to Lilydale High, and that's how we sort of
Cool.
knew each other. And I knew I was local at the time. I was living in a suburb called Mirrabah, which is like 5 minutes up the road from Lilydale. And we sort of knew each other through industry. And then, it just was, oh man, where else would I go? No other school
Yeah,
sort of had a facility
checks
that
out.
big. And I mean, in its prime, we had species that you can't keep on a private license down here in Vic. Like we had, Kimbo rock monitors and, I think there's Owen Pelly python there now. It's just, it's gone
Yeah.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
how do they? How does it incorporate into the high school curriculum?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when you get to about year 10, I think it is, you can actually do a certificate in animal studies
Yeah.
instead of a core elective, right? So you can drop good old algebra and pick up your Cert 2 in animal studies. That's what I did. So that way I left probably year 11 and I had a cert already under my belt, right? And then from there I went on to do my Cert 3 in captive animals, which was like the trade industry standard. But
Yeah.
obviously they're still used heavily in like science classes, right? So they will come and learn about adaptation and camouflage and ecology, everything from the ground up, that in an animal's habitat. Even the art classes will come in and kids will draw animals like as they sit in situ, like leaf-tailed
Yeah.
geckos, and it's crazy.
I mean,
any way they
when you
can.
start looking at it, you can start to
Mm.
incorporate whatever you really
In
really
anything, yeah.
want to, and if you can adapt whatever your lesson is into that classroom, then you know you teach the young kids maths. How many crickets am I feeding to this frilly? It's the answer is like 50 before it's full.
Yeah, you can tell how that kept me interested in school for so long. That's for sure. That
Yeah,
was a little hack.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Um,
That's incredible, and you can see how that something like that would really shape people's lives. Exhibit A is sitting well opposite me
yeah,
virtually.
and I'm not the only one. Trust me, there's other people in industry which are, you know, from Lillida. We went to
Yeah,
school
no
together
doubt. Yeah.
however long ago, 10 years ago, something like that, which doesn't seem that long, I guess. And they're working in other wildlife parks around the country. So it's crazy. There's a few of us out there, rare breed.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's amazing. So
mm,
after Lilydale was the private zoo, and then
yeah.
that shaped you, sort of pushed you more towards reptiles.
Yeah, so I was already a reptile lover, and when they hired me in at the time, they were like, "We want you to look after our reptiles," and they had a handful. And I was like, looking after their diamond python, but then I have to go out and feed all these kangaroos out in the rain, and I was like, "Oh man, this is not where it's at for me." And then I actually gave up at one stage and I quit that job and I just went, oh man, getting into the zookeeping industry is really hard. I'm only ever going to be here. And I took an apprenticeship as a cabinet maker, building kitchen cabinets, which were just reptile enclosures with swinging doors on them, right?
With
They were just,
doors, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It was like the ultimate how to build your own tank
Yeah.
course. Yeah, but it was great. And then a friend of mine was working alongside of Zoos Victoria, and she rang me up and said, I've just left Melbourne Zoo and they're looking for some really, really good reptile keepers. You should apply. And I said, oh yeah, like I'll think about it. And I did, right? I sat on that, looked at the job application online, and then I went, oh, maybe I'll throw a hat, and did the old, I think it was like the 11:30 p.m. application, about half an hour left. I'll just send one off,
Nice.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
why
yeah,
not?
classic. Yeah, why not? I'll throw a hat. And then, yeah, heard back from them, had an interview, and yeah, got a call. And before I knew it, was trying on a uniform and working with the crew out at Melbourne Zoo. And I mean, that was incredible again, because now I've gone from seeing the private industry and private zoos to now you're in a government setting. You've got access to incredible enclosures, incredible resources in terms of the science and the knowledge that's shared with you. Um, I think I never owned a UV reader before I worked there, because, you bang the tube in there and replace it every 12 months type thing. And who keeps an eye on that?
Yeah.
And, all that sort of thing. So that was crazy. It was a really good sort of learning for me. And I worked with that group out there for about sort of maybe 8 months or so. And then a job came up, working reptiles full time at Hillsville Sanctuary, which is my local Zoos Victoria property. And I applied for that and got it. And their reptile team at the time was 2 people. So it was myself and a legend called Courtney. And no doubt she's watching this. Shout out to Court. She's still there doing great things. And yeah, that place, at the time, it needed some work. I mean, we put in some hard yards, and what I mean by it needed some work was, we were, look at zoos nowadays, we've got live plants and plant growing lights and mister systems and everything like that. And I feel like we do a really good job at updating that facility, and it was awesome. And then now I'm currently working for Moonlit Sanctuary, which is down sort of along the Mornington Peninsula, about an hour out of Melbourne CBD. And I've taken on a management role there. So I'm called a live sciences coordinator of ectotherms, but it's just supervisor, manager, whatever you want to call it. It just depends on what your business shapes it as, I guess. So I currently oversee a team of between 2 to sometimes 5 keepers. Just depends on the day of the week and what's happening. And we look after sort of 3 core areas. So one's obviously reptiles. Invertebrates is a huge sort of chunk of our department, and the other one is fish. So we've got a aquatic threatened fauna program, which I'm happy to sort of go into if you want to go down the fish path for a short run.
Yes,
But
definitely.
yeah,
Let's
cool.
do that.
I'm sure you can relate,
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Um,
please. Let's do
Joe's
it.
like, oh, he's talking fish. How good.
Yeah, I'm listening.
So, yeah. So When I started there in 2024, there was a grant application out for something called the Nature Fund, which is basically anyone can apply for it, right? You can apply for a grant through local government. And we wrote our application around helping threatened or endangered, yeah, that's what the facility looks like, sort of small-bodied native fish. So we focused on sort of the two species, but the one that's currently in there is known as the dwarf galaxid, Galaxia pusula, which is a tiny little fish, maybe 20 millimeters long. And they used to be sort of a prolific fish species throughout the state of Victoria, up into New South Wales and South Australia as well. And they are basically taking a heavy hit because of a lot of different things that are affecting them. The main one, which we always hear about, is climate change, global warming, that classic.
Yeah.
The other is pest species. So when we say pest species, a lot of people think of things like cats and foxes. They're not so much of a threat, but things like people releasing carp and gambusia obviously affect a lot of our endemic small-bodied native fish. So they're just getting smashed by bigger predators out there.
Is it these guys?
Yeah,
Galaxia
that's them. Yeah, yep.
Pusilla?
Yep, Pusula, yep.
What a funky little
So
dude.
yeah, they're pretty awesome. So you can see
Yeah.
the ones with the orange band through them are actually males. Yeah, like
Okay.
that. And then the non-banded ones will be girls. So that really orange is a boy. Um, so the other thing they haven't got going for them is they're relatively short-lived. So females we see live up to sort of 2 years, but males
Oh, geez.
max out
Yeah.
at about 15 months. So they're basically you're born, you breed, and then unfortunately you pass on from there. So if you can imagine, if you have like a flowing river system and someone builds a housing estate or something in the middle and it becomes sort of two different streams now, it took just a decade for them to basically genetically bottleneck and crash. So surveying statewide, basically ecologists turning around going, this species is disappearing and we need someone to support it. So we looked into it. And there was one other lady by the name of Chris Lamon. She runs a company called Middle Creek Aquaculture Farm, and she was the only person who had this fish and was breeding it. It was just on her shoulders, and we reached out and we said, "Look, we don't want to steal your thunder and what you're doing here, but we'd love to help out." And she was like, "Please, we would love some support and someone else to actually have them." So yeah, we have got about 100 founding adult fish with us at the moment. We're right in the peak of breeding season, so we're putting mops in. So we're doing mop spawning, and then from there we'll have fry hatching out within the next couple of weeks. So my life's about to be round the clock fish care, which is pretty awesome. Or should I say, my team's life? Shout out to
Your
the team of
team,
people
yeah.
behind that operation. So yeah, everything's on a sump filtration like you saw before. So we can isolate 6 individual tanks so we can join them to the one sump there with. And yeah, there's all live plants. It's got a big water filtration system on it. So there's RO, and then there's a whole bunch of like charcoal and carbon filters. There's UV sterilizers. So it's a beautiful facility and we love it. It's also home to 2 reptiles. It's got a pair of Maclay's water snakes in it at the moment, which are just hanging out down there while their exhibit's being built. So we needed somewhere to put them, and we had some tanks that were set up for, I think we were going to breed frogs. Like we got some raniformis, some growling grass frogs, and we snuck a couple of Maclay's in there just for now while their exhibit's
Nice.
being
Why
built.
not? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Hell yeah.
wicked snake. They're so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I don't know much about the Galaxias, but I'm going to freestyle a brief synopsis. They're a small
Yes, please.
fish, cold, fast-flowing water, and then, like you said, they scatter spawn in a mop, and then when the fry hatch, they'd be looking for little tiny invertebrates, and they must be minuscule.
Yeah, correct. Yes, they are tiny. So you're pretty close. So they are, short-lived, super small, like slow flowing or almost still water
slow?
and heavily vegetated.
Right.
So we have like all our valves on our sumps are like just cracked, just to like get a trickle moving through, and
Interesting.
they love it like that. And then when the fish hatch, they are tiny. Like I don't even know how to compare them. Like a crumb. Like they're so small. They're literally a crumb with a tail swimming around.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're rearing them on green water. So we're making
Yeah.
our own just beautifully algae rich nutrient water. And then also saltwater rotifers, which are tiny micro invertebrate we keep in a big culture on site at Moonlit, which is, I mean, that's half the job, right? Is supporting the food for the fish. You know, the rotifers,
Totally.
the brine shrimp, the green water. It's a lot of work. And there's a team of people. I mean, shout out to you guys. You're putting in the hard yards out there, keeping that going. And they're just a bunch of legends too. But yeah, they're looking after all those tiny little, yeah, crumbs with tails, man, swimming around. So
Yeah,
they're
super
just
cool.
legends. But yeah,
With the brood stock, did they come from? Oh God, I've forgotten that lady's name already.
yeah. So
Did they
they
come from
came
her?
from her. So she got permits, and obviously they were wild caught broodstock that were brought into
Awesome.
captivity.
Yeah.
And we were looking at doing the same, but obviously the first time keeping anything, we're nervous, as you could imagine.
Naturally, yeah.
So yeah, so we said to her, well, what's the best sort of way for us to do this? And she actually gave us a couple of genetic lines. So she's basically got them from different localities, and then she's sort of swapping and then basically creating the ultimate genetically rich group, and then she's sort of topping up those wild populations to keep them genetically strong at the moment.
Very
So
cool.
we've just got like 6 RAS systems with all different localities basically we're keeping at the moment. So yeah, and they like it super cold. You're right before. Well, I think yeah, we are. No, you're not a nightmare. Well, I think they go down to about 8 degrees Celsius. So super, super cool. Yeah.
No way.
They, yeah.
That's not for me. But
I
I
think those,
like.
yeah,
How do you
you
go
go.
about keeping the water that cold?
They're on chillers,
Yeah.
and then obviously the room's got like an aircon, so it's temperature controlled room as well. So my team this time of year in 2 jumpers, and they have coveralls over the tops because they're freezing down there. But the water is really, really cold. I think they stopped breeding at 12 degrees Celsius. It's
Right.
too warm, so they're like,
Oh,
I can't go on. This is the water's not quite right. So yeah,
wow.
they're pretty picky, but yeah, you keep your hands in those tanks for too long, it's super cold.
That just your hands would fall off. They I presume like they'd have a pretty slow metabolism being so cold. They don't. Do they eat much or?
No, not this time of year.
Yeah.
We've got everyone nice and fat and ready to breed. And there's actually an awesome video. I don't have it of males that are pushing females into the mopeds to get them to spawn. So we're
Wow.
seeing a bit of that, which is awesome. So the boys know what they're doing. Well, fingers crossed, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then yeah, from there we'll rotate mopeds through and just wait for them to hatch out. But they reckon from around 100 founders, we should end up with up to sort of 2,000 plus fry. So yeah,
Very
that
cool.
facility, 36 tanks, not all of them are full right now, but another couple of months. And I'm sure we'll be
Yeah,
looking
no
for some
doubt.
room.
And so,
Yeah.
what's the plan moving forward with them? Is it a
Yeah.
re-release sort of plan?
100%. So everything goes back out into the wild. So we've
Yeah.
got an ecologist in the field by the name of Lance, and he's doing all our work for us. And he basically gives me the longs and lats of where they're going, and I fill out the permits, which is probably the harder part now that I think about it. I don't know
Yeah,
why
you got the
Lance.
short end of the stick there.
Yeah, I don't know why Lance isn't doing that for me, but anyway, we're filling them out, and then yeah, we're going to meet up and put them back in the wild, which is the bit that I'm keenest for, like having a program that's
Oh, that's
actually
yeah.
benefiting conservation, not just being labelled as conservation. I feel like a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm doing conservation. I've got a koala." And I guess in a way, it's doing conservation through education for its species, 100%. And I do think that's very valuable. But to have a species or a program where everything's going back to the wild and helping those populations that are really struggling,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, there's definitely many forms of conservation, but I feel like it, personally the most impactful would feel like literally putting the animals back where they belong or where they came from. It's literally like it's entirely tangible. You can see it happen in front of you, and I think that'd be incredibly gratifying to be part of something like that.
Yeah, I know myself and my team with all their freezing cold hands. Looking forward to that moment where they can release those fish out there into a struggling population that need the help. So yeah, we're super pumped.
Amazing, amazing. But that's enough fish talk, I think.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
podcast are we on again? My bad.
nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, freezing cold water. Anyway,
We're,
what's the?
we're meant to be under the heat lamp. My bad, my
I
bad.
know.
So
It's funny how many times a day I say that at work.
I
Oh,
could
it's
imagine.
under the heat lamp. I'm like, oh no, come on.
Uh,
Anyway, what's the reptile collection like there at Moonlit?
Yeah, so when Moonlit sort of hired me on, they had a couple of reptiles which were looked after by the sort of koala department at the time. That was never really big enough to be its own department, so I think they were just kind of put in wherever they sort of fitted. And when I got there, I was walking around with the then manager of life sciences, and she just basically said to me, "We need someone who can do the reptile to come in here and steer this ship." And they had a reptile house they were starting to build, and then that classic thing called COVID hit, and
Mm.
no one knew if they were going to open their doors again. And obviously, the priority was looking after everything that was already in sort of Moonlit's collection, and they put a pause on it. So when I got there, I actually got to finish that off, which was probably the best part of the job. I reckon was building exhibits and working with some really great people to make some awesome spaces. So we finished it off on display. At the moment, we have, I think it's nine exhibits. It's a relatively small reptile house. And the reason for that was because our owner, so we're privately owned. We have one owner, a director. His name's Michael. He's a great guy. He basically is passionate about conservation. So he wanted an area where he could display species that were important and have that Australiana reptile box ticked. Like we've got a crocodile, we've got some big python species, we've got frogs, we've got venomous snakes. So people could sort of see that from a tourism point of view. But then he was like, I really want you guys to be focused on conservation. So that's one part of your department, but I really want you to be out the back putting in the work, where it counts and helping wild species. So at the moment, the collection we have on display looks like we have a couple of cohabs. So we have what's called Didymeria, or violet-winged stick insects, above our tiger snakes. And then we have a black-headed python. She's on her own for now. And then, there's a tiger snake space. Yeah. So we
Very
keep the
cool.
leaf
Very, very
insects
cool.
in the browse over the top. It's pretty awesome. And
Yeah,
then
definitely.
there is a little running stream in the bottom there. So all that rock was done by Jake Meaney. Shout out to Jake. He's done an awesome job there. We got him in pretty early on in the piece to sort of work on these spaces. And the key was also to make it accessible and easy to maintain for staff that weren't venomous snake people. So what I sort of mean by that is, if you have a heat light that blows in an exhibit, you got to get in there with a tiger snake and try and change a heat light. It's not ideal, but you can see in this space on that left-hand side where that mock rock sort of shelf is, all the heat lights are recessed in there, and we can access that from outside the exhibit, so we don't have to go in there at all to change anything.
Awesome.
And the pond's the same, so we can drain it and refill it from externally, basically. So if I'm away at a zookeeper thing or releasing fish, maybe, and we have a keeper on that isn't venomous snake trained, but it's one of our reptile casuals, she can come in, she can change that snake's water, she can change the heat, change the UV from the top of it without even having to unlock the door. So it's awesome.
That's awesome.
And
That's amazing.
it's worth doing for sure.
And so these are all little bits and pieces that you got to come up with in the design phase of this?
Yeah, 100%. Never having venomous snakes at a zoo or a facility before is it's a huge thing to bring in, and especially when you have a management
absolutely.
team and a people and culture lady who is looking at you like, I don't know if this is a great idea. But I'm really lucky, and a huge shout out to our director and our manager. They were really supportive, and we had some really good conversations. We did some really in-depth training before bringing them in. And we even went as far as, so we have a death adder in our collection, and death adder antivenom for us was kept about an hour away, and we could have polyvalent, which is at our local hospital, which is about not even 15 minutes away. And I bought death adder antivenom down. We keep it at Frankston Emergency for us, for our team, just because we wanted to tick every box possible and be as safe as we could. So I think it's something a lot of people don't think about, you know what I mean? Like if you've got an inland taipan at home, where is your closest antivenom?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
actually
pretty nuts.
I heard a rumor recently that the local hospital here only stocked the polyvalent, and I was like, whoa, hang on, that's of significant concern for me.
Yeah.
And so I was surprised. It was actually quite easy to get in contact with the hospital, and the pharmacist was like, oh, actually, let me check that for you. And no, they stock all appropriate antivenom, including sea snake, which was very
Wow.
paramount for me.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
definitely.
so
Anyway,
good.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome to
so
hear
that
that you're going
was
to those lengths. That's epic.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you probably know people that have had polyvalent before and it's not the greatest time. I mean, no snake bite is, but we wanted to make sure that we had every box possible ticked, and now it's written into our policy basically. So if our director turns around in 2 years' time and says, "Hey, I'd love to get, I don't know, inland taipan in and display it," we would bring down antivenom for that species as well, and we wouldn't
Yeah,
keep them without
very
it.
cool.
So it's great, and I think it's a box everyone should tick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our tiger snake display. I mentioned the blackheadeds on our own. We have a pair of rough scale pythons at the moment, which are just hanging out on a display. And then we have a death adder, which we keep. Oh yeah, it's the reptile building there. So a death adder is in one of those taller sort of arboreal enclosures you can see to the left there. And we keep above him a big northern golden orb weaver, or they call them the giant golden orb weaver, Nephila pillarpiece. So we have one of them that lives in the treetops and makes an incredible web above our little death adder on the ground. He's a legend. We have a mixed lizard display as well. So there's shinglebacks in there. There's a frilled lizard in there, and an inland bearded dragon pair. And then to your left there, as you can see in that photo, that's our green tree python space. So we have a pair of Australian green tree pythons in there, with about 5 green tree frogs at the moment in a cohab, and there's also a land mullet in there. Which we see from time to time. He's sneaking around, digging his little burrows on the ground down there. So, yeah. On top of that, we've got our freshwater crocodile, some growling grass frogs, and we've got the future Maclay's water snake tank coming soon. It's being built at the moment.
Very cool. I've just bought up the freshie cage, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But I want to say, fuck man, well done on all the cohabs. I just think they add that extra layer, not only for the keeper but also for the guest or the viewer as well. I think, particularly with the inverts. In an exhibit that's got a pretty sedentary animal like a death adder in it, it really
Yeah.
adds, like putting a spider in there really adds an extra dimension. That sort of, people are impressed by a death adder, but then when they look up and they see a big orb weaver or whatever, like it really
Yeah.
adds to it. So I really commend you. That's awesome.
It's so funny too. Many zoos ago, we had someone do a study on how long the average person spends in front of a reptile exhibit. And I think it was
It's a
something
disgusting number.
it was like 3 seconds. Like it was,
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah, it's horrible.
seen it and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And having the death adder in there, we found people would look for it more because they're like, all right, the sign says death adder, but I can't see it. Where is it? Where is it? It's in the leaf litter. But putting the spider in there as well, it's so funny because even though it's got a sign, people either go, oh yeah, spider, and they'll move on, or they'll go death adder and they'll start looking around and they won't notice that huge spider, right in their face. Yeah, and they get people jumping back from the glass. But yeah, it's super impressive, and she looks great in there. And you can see there's our huge freshwater crocodile there, Dee Dee. She's probably, I think she's about 1.2 now, so still growing. And yeah, she lives in that space. So there's actually on the other side of that mock rock a little, like a ramp that's all rock, and it goes down to a big land area, and she's got a heated cave. But yeah, she's there basically sitting under the sun, as you can see by the amount of UV we've got going on there. So.
Tell us about the damn light fixtures. I guess for people listening, there must be about 12 or maybe 15 or 16 UV tubes above this thing. It's extreme.
Yeah, so we have a planned turtle cohab for this space. So we put UV in originally for the turtle. And at the time, I was like, how am I going to get a good UV reading with a 1.7 meter ceiling height? So that's to the water's surface. And we had a local company down here who were making these awesome fixtures that held, I think it was like 8 or 12 T5 tubes, and it was wicked, and they stopped making them, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
God, I hate that, right? So we actually made this frame ourselves, or our facilities and works team did. So it's basically a big aluminium frame, and we've got I'm pretty sure there's 14 Arcadia 14% luminized tubes in there, so they dim themselves, which is awesome.
Okay.
And there's two great big LED bars in there, which are just fluval plant lights, basically. And the plan is at the moment we're looking at bringing plants into that space.
Awesome.
So those plant growing lights will let that sort of take off. But yeah, you can see she's got a nice big mock rock log there. I want to sort of grow some moss over and get some nice big water lilies hopefully happening in there. But she gets a reading on a UV reader where she's sitting at that high at about 5.0, and that's at 1.7 meters distance. So it's a lot of UV, but
It's a
yeah,
lot of
she
UV.
she loves it. And I think
Yeah, that's
if you're
awesome.
gonna keep if you're gonna keep a species like that too, that's from that area, I mean, you got to keep them right. You know what I mean? And they take a lot of UV, depending on where you look at for freshies. You know, they're sitting out on roads in full sun, or if you look at populations like over near like Tunnel Creek and all that in those rock crevices, man, they would be exposed to some serious UV. So yeah, we wanted to be serious about it too, and I think it's great. And she soaks it up. She loves it. So well,
I
it's
just,
good.
man, I think it's so wonderful that you're in a facility that is just they just want you to do all the best, and the best
Mm.
possible things that you can do to take care of these animals. It's fantastic. It's unreal.
Yeah, we're actually talking at the moment about building another unit, the exact same that goes on the land side as well. She has got
Oh,
UV over
cool.
there. It's we've got like a mock rock cave, and it's got I think it's got an Arcadia. I think it's like a Thermal Zoo Pro unit in it with two UVs and a basking section, and we would just want to basically just give her more. Why not?
Give it
So
more.
she spends a
Yeah.
lot of time out on the land, and yeah, growing some more plants over there would be nice too. So. Yeah, that's Dee Dee. She's pretty awesome.
She looks fantastic. She looks very well taken care of. Now, how
Mm.
do you go about cleaning the pond? Because for us at the aquarium, we've got an adult freshie that lives in a pretty big enclosure, and
Mm.
the way that we have to clean it is once we decide that it fully needs a scrub, someone jumps in a wetsuit with a snorkel, and the other guy stands there with a broomstick. Is it a
Yeah,
sort of
so we thought of that.
similar?
We thought of that. Even though Dee Dee's a whopping 4 feet long now, maybe might be a stretch, maybe 3 feet. We actually have an area, you can't really see it in this photo, but there's a small sort of roller door that we can open from the back. It's electronics. You put a key in the wall and turn, and the door goes up. And when we moved her in here, it was basically my first priority to almost train her in a way that when she hears that door going up, she's going to get fed, and that way she's
Yeah.
going to rush in there with all her might, and that's what we've done. So we actually recall her now into that space. And then we can shut her completely off exhibit, and then you don't need the person with the broomstick. But we do, however, need someone with waders and a snorkel. That still does happen. Yeah.
Have to go in
No
there.
matter how
Yeah,
much
yeah.
filtration, you've still got to get in there.
You still got to
So,
do something. I
yeah.
just hope it's warmer than 8 degrees in there.
Yeah, I think we're 27.5, or it was 26 degrees, 0.5 or something like that in there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Super
lovely.
toasty. And above her, you can kind of see it. It's full ducted heating and cooling. So it basically cools once it gets over like 35 in there, and then heats when it's under 26 or something. So
Wow.
it keeps it hot. It keeps it hot in there. That's why everyone on the outside's like watching these keepers just slave away,
Yeah.
sweating. But Dee Dee's, yeah,
Sweating.
she's
Yeah,
living
yeah,
the
yeah.
best life in there. Probably 100% humidity, no doubt. So
Yeah, she's
yeah,
cruising, man. Oh,
yeah,
that's epic. I'm a bit jealous thinking about my exhibit now. It's nowhere near that level of technology. That's awesome.
yeah. It's pretty awesome. And I mean, we just thought about the lockaway at the time was just a no brainer, right? Like, I've worked with some decent sized crocs, and going in with her when I first started, she's like 2 feet long. You could just sort of like, get out of the way, just push her out the way type of thing. But when they're 6 feet long, 7 feet long, and they're a bit heavier and they're coming at you, and I find freshies have like almost small crocodile syndrome. They're just like super, super pumped up. They think they're like this great big 16
Yeah,
footer, it's going to come
one hundred
ripping out of the
percent.
water. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Dee Dee, she definitely got a bit of that in her for sure. And the lockaway was a no brainer. So we actually are training her to come in there now. We've trained her to weigh herself. She target trains too, so we can move her up onto the scales and off the scales. Yeah, she's incredible. Such a great animal. So
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Very
she's
cool.
pretty
And
cool.
I think something that has obviously benefited what you're doing now massively is the ability to set all these things into the plan and construct it like
Mm,
that literally from the start. A lot of the exhibits that I work with have been retrofitted to suit reptiles. A lot of them were aquariums. So,
yeah.
I struggle with things like, access is hard for some of my things and all the lighting has to be retrofitted and stuff like that. So you've got a massive advantage to how you've done it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's always in our thinking. It's like, how can we constantly keep improving?
Yeah,
Like at the moment, we're doing all of our off-display tanks are being redone. I mean, we're in the classic, either in exoterras or in melamines from 15 years ago. So shout out to Habitats at Home. We've got some. I hope I get a shirt because I mean we've got a lot getting built by you, Tyson. So yeah, he's redone all our off displays, and they've got like our big Python tanks. They've built in ponds and the drain, and all of our lighting isn't just screwed to the top of the enclosure. It's sitting on top of the perforated mesh. So you can just change it when the future comes out. Like I'm sure LED UV is probably a good 5 to 10 years away from being the industry standard. We'll be
standard. Yeah.
sitting here laughing at T5 tubes going, what were we doing with
What were we
LED bars and
thinking?
T5s? Oh God, man, we're such fools. Can't believe we kept reptiles like that, which
Yeah.
is such a great thing because I think after 20 years in this industry, it is getting better. And what I mean by that is like a melamine enclosure that was 1200 by 6 by 6 was huge for a blue tongue when I was a kid. And then it
Yeah.
was, everything was in rack systems, and it was just, I can keep 30 snakes in the space. I could keep three carpet pythons, I just put them in racks. And, it's nice to sort of see that era change, and now there's plants and LED lights and people are making their own backgrounds, and there's different diet options out there. Like I'm not just feeding my carp python a large rat every other week. I'm doing quail some weeks, and I'm doing a rabbit, and then I leave it for a couple of months and I go back to rats, or you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
it's a
definitely.
changing game. It's so good to see. So
Yeah, I think it's a changing game, and I think it sort of has to be,
mm,
particularly if you've been around for a long time, if you've been doing the same thing for a long time. I don't know. I think variety is the spice of life, or whatever. So it changes things up. It keeps things interesting, and um, one thing I've found is when you are updating bits of equipment is some of the best parts of reptile keeping. It's
yeah.
one thing to put an animal into a new enclosure, but the tinkering and the mucking around, and I just actually got a new thermostat today that I'm going to have a play with, and I'm really looking for. I can't wait. I
Yeah,
can't wait to
yeah,
put it
yeah.
in and
It's
then
so
start
cool.
mucking around and seeing if I can, maybe change the animal's behavior for the better or something just by mucking around with things. And I think everyone should look to do that, considering that we chose to keep these animals in the way that we do.
Yeah, 100%. Like when we looked into that UV over that crocodile, we needed a UV fitting that was IPX5 rated and above, right? Because of the water, even though it's not directly getting wet, the humidity obviously was there. So when we looked into those luminized tubes, they were rated for it, and I'd never used them before, and they had dimming features. And so I just took a tube home and just sat at home on my couch and programmed this light and just watched it go through its cycle and went, God, how cool is this? You know what I
Sick.
mean? Like
Yeah, that's
this
cool.
is crazy. Yeah. And now it's so funny. We've taken UV readings at like different times a day. And obviously the reading you get at 9 a.m. compared to 1 o'clock in the afternoon it's crazy. Like it's just crazy tech. I think it's unreal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I am not up to date with the Arcadia Luminize. How does the dimming function work? Does it just? Yeah, I've got no
So
idea.
in the app, from what I've done, is you just preset your time you want it to come on, and then your percentage of UV you want it to output. So I just have a couple of points, and I've just sort of staggered it out on the map. So you've got like I just follow sunrise, sunset, like what's happening outside at the moment. So say
Yeah.
it comes on at 6:30 in the morning, it'll go up to sort of 8%, and then by sort of 9 it'll be 25, and then by sort of midday, it's over 50, 60, and then that peak sun of the day, I think 1 till 2 o'clock or 1 till 2:30, 100%. Then we just begin dimming again, and obviously in person standing in the park, you never notice it, right? It just looks like UV tubes are
Lights
on.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you come in, like I rocked up really early the other morning because we had a big day on and I wanted to get ahead with my team, and went over there and I was like, oh God, the light's really faint. Like, that's crazy. And it's
Yeah.
just doing the sunrise. So yeah, it's crazy. So we have that in every exhibit now, have full sunrise to sunset displays.
Epic.
And they actually we run a night tour at Moonlit, and we use 1% warm white light because it's scientifically proven to be the best light for displaying reptiles overnight. And it basically, now it sets with the sunset outside, so it starts by 5:30 here. Our lights will dim down and just stay on that 1% light till about 9:30 at night. Our tour ends at 9, but I give them that extra half an hour in case there's people running behind or they're locking up or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it goes pitch black for the rest of the night. And we see our green tree pythons moving. We see our rough scale pythons moving. The frogs. The other night, our night tour guide sent me a video. There was just like 4 male frogs just standing there croaking, jumping on each other.
Huh.
9 o'clock at night. Like, yeah, it's crazy. It's awesome. So
That's sick. That's so cool.
yeah,
That's so,
super cool.
and modifying the technology and the lighting not only benefits, like, obviously it's awesome for the animals, but when you're a zoological facility and you're trying to run tours and show guests a good time, if you can get animals to do things, or encourage animals to do things for guests to see, that just means they're going to have a better time. And if you want to tie this back into the whole conservation thing, the conservation through education, if people can have a good time and experience something different, maybe they'll think again or just think more about the animals that they've seen, which, we always get a little bit philosophical. We're at 45 minutes now. If you want to think about it like that, it makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. And it's so funny hearing people that come through the park and they're like, oh, I've been here 3 times and that rough scale python, it's always sitting in that rock crevice and it never moves. And I'm like, hey, here's a video from our night tour guide the other night. Here's him climbing, up to the ceiling, and he's hanging in ambush or wrapped around the grass. We've got one that wraps around a little grass tussock and like sits in ambush next to it, which is so cool. And it's a different world. Like I wouldn't see half the stuff that goes on, because you leave work at 4 o'clock and you're in the next day, and then during the night they're all out and about, living almost like a second life. It's so cool.
Totally. And yeah, you wouldn't know unless you went in to have a look or had cameras or something or people there. So,
yeah. We have people there and cameras. So yeah, we see it all. It's awesome.
Man, you are ticking boxes.
No, it is great. And sometimes, like, I'll just log on overnight and go, oh, I wonder what's happening, and I'll just check in and I can just see the rough scales are moving around. Or the other night I could see on the camera our death adder was like climbing this huge fig tree we've got growing in the corner of his exhibit. He was just decided to tackle it. Yeah,
why not?
Why.
He
was just up there. I was like, oh, the spider's really shaking that tree. And no, it's just him. He's just getting in there, just watch the tree snakes cool. Clearly, and yeah, thought he'd have a go. So yeah, good on him. Yeah.
I do want to talk a bit about your personal reptile collection, and I guess just give us a rundown on what you got at home.
Yeah, so it's definitely gone through its phases. I've still got a couple of elapid species. I am a coastal taipan lover, like you, Joe. I've got one here. Yeah, guilty, man. He's just the best. And
so
I
cool.
think about, I should, give him a good home somewhere else. But guys, they're just an awesome snake. And I know people who work with them talk about the intelligence, but they're so right. Like, it's there. That's a switched on snake, and it knows, it knows what you're doing. It's so cool. So I've got one of them. I've still got my first lizard. I do keep a few different colors of tree snake. So I've got blues, golds, and greens at the moment, which I've had for quite a long time. So I think everyone's on the tree snakes seem to be popping off at the moment. Everyone seems to be into them.
Definitely.
But we had them at Lilydale High when I was 12, 13 years old. The wildlife department actually gave us one once that a snake catcher pulled out of a moving truck, and they didn't know what to do with it, so they just donated it to the school.
Fair
And
enough.
that's how the first one came about. And then I actually picked a few up by going to interstate expos. I think I went to Penrith or something like that, and someone just had golden tree snake hatchies on a table, and I was like, "Whoa, you never see these in Vic."
Yes.
Picked
Buy
them up
them.
10 years ago, and they're still here. They're actually right here behind me.
Awesome. Wow.
Um, yeah, and I actually bred them last year for the first time ever. And I know you're going to ask me what I thought the secret was, and the answer is I did nothing.
Nice.
I
Love
actually
that.
didn't even try. The room I'm sitting in now, I keep my reptiles in a shed out the back of our property, and it used to just have a room inside of the shed, and we ripped it out and plastered the whole building. So I went from like a 4 by 3 meter reptile room to a 9 by 10 meter reptile room with a 3 meter ceiling. It's fully insulated and temperature controlled, and it's great. Definitely worth doing. But why I did that, I moved all these reptiles out, and they were just like scattered around in our house and in our front double car garage and wherever I could sort of fit them while we did the renos. And I thought that would have really messed them up. They're a pretty sort of secretive snake from time to time. I don't think there's
Yeah.
going to be any breeding. And then flipped this little black hide to go and feed them one day, and she's in there with a clutch of eggs looking at me. So
Perfect. Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes a bit of a shake up can kick them into gear, I suppose. Hey.
Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, incubated them, and I've got 3 little hatchlings at the moment. And before anyone bombards me, I'm not partying with them because they're just gonna hang around forever. My team at work are actually begging me to bring them in as part of the zoo. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, surely
Of course they are.
we could just get them. We could just get them at work. We'll just put them in, on display." And I'm like, "Oh, I think they're pretty content sitting here at home."
Yeah, I
So
think that checks out,
yeah,
man. Bravo, man. Well done. They're
yeah,
a
thank
pain in the
you.
ass, those little guys.
They are. Actually, I should thank you, because your episode with Tyson, he talked about getting them feeding, and without that little trick, little dish upside down, it's a game changer. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
awesome.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
shout out Tyson. Thank you, Tyson,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah,
worked
great
for me.
guy.
It's worked for me too. So
It's so good. I actually spoke to someone at the Reptile Expo this year in March, and he has a tree snake now, and he's been assist feeding that for a long time. And I said, "You got to try the dish method, man." And I actually saw him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, Have you tried it?" And he said, "I haven't gotten there yet." So I'm like, "Man, you're just holding yourself up at this point, you
you're
know."
just holding this.
Like,
I go through phases too with them. It's like I just can't be fucked some days. I'm like, but you just need to do it, and then eventually,
yeah,
it'll work. It'll stick. But
yeah.
is
As someone
the
who's, yeah, you go.
now you're right.
I was going to say, as someone who's moved through elapids. Like a couple of years ago, I did a clutch of speckled brown snakes.
Terrible
And
idea.
getting those things feeding was a lot of late nights. And then when I bred the tree snakes, I was like, "Oh, why have I done this? Like this is gonna be a little bit painful." But grabbed it by the horns and went, "I'll give this a crack, sorry, with Tyson's trick," and all of them fed for me with no issue. So
Amazing.
absolutely wrapped. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
And
yeah.
the speckleds obviously gave you grief. Did you manage to get any of them established?
Yes, I actually still have 9 juveniles here, which are all going to go to venom supplies.
Yeah.
So they're going to go and make anti-venom, and they're for research. That was actually why I bred them. So
Awesome, man.
Nathan
That's amazing.
Dunstan, yeah, great guy over there, and he actually, I heard through a friend he only had 1 speckled in the sort of collection there, and
Yeah.
I reached out and said, "Oh, I've got some pairs here. If you want some, happy to breed you some." And he was like, please, we need some more. And then we both got caught up. He had some stuff going on in his personal life and in mine, and I said I'll take him on and get him feeding. And yeah, it was a good it was a good challenge. Joe had a great time. So
Yeah, brown snakes.
yeah.
I've got a few species of browns established now, just a few here and there. But I'll never forget the first time I hatched a clutch of dewgites out, and I went through and gave them all just live pinkies to see how they'd go. And like 6 or 7 out of like 15 of them ate a live pinky first go, and
Wow.
I was so stoked. And I hit up Matt Somerville, and I was like, Matt, half of these brown snakes just ate. Like, this is amazing. I thought this was meant, I thought it was going to be harder. And he's like, nah, man, dewgites are just easy. I was like, fuck. Okay, well,
Yeah.
never mind. I'll try something else. And I have failed on a couple of other brown snake species, but also had success on them too. So they can be tricky.
Yeah, I dabbled in a few other, like I've bred tiger snakes before at home. I've got some red bellies many moons ago and reared them from tiny neonates, and they were challenging, but the speckleds, man, it's it's hard. And I actually had one which did exactly what you said, straight onto pinkies, first feed, smashed it, and it never looked back. And it was the first snake that I rehomed to a good friend of mine, and he just said, "Oh, is it feeding you?" He was worried about not feeding. I was like, "Man, if anything's gonna eat, it's this snake. It's like 3 times bigger than its siblings because it
Than
just
the
came out of
others,
the egg."
yeah, literally.
Yeah, and it just knew what to do. And it's still a great snake. So
Yeah, awesome.
it's awesome.
And so, any copperheads or tigers in the collection now?
I don't have any right now. Actually, I lied. I do have one tiger snake, so no copperheads. I've got a WA tiger snake which I've had for a long time.
Nice.
It originated from someone you might know. I think Stu Evans. Yeah,
Yep.
It's a Stewie Evans line. Nice yellow individual.
I've probably had my hands on that snake many times.
You probably yeah. It's a beautiful snake.
It's probably tried to bite me. Does it try to bite you? Yes, it's yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's well, I don't muck with it. We'll say that. Yeah.
Stu always said he liked the WAs because they have spunk, and that's one way to put it.
Yeah. The one we have currently at Moonlit is like the polar opposite, and it makes me look at that snake and go, is this snake like, is it 100%? Because he's just super calm, like a little bit of a hood, but he'll just sit on a hook.
The calm one might not be all there.
Yeah. he's just so relaxed, and I'm like, "Oh, do you want to eat?" And he's like, "Oh, thanks." And like drags it back into and I'm like, okay, mate.
It's kind of ideal for a keeper though. It's kind of the dream.
It's perfect. And then I deal with that guy, and it's it's not the same. That's for sure.
Polar opposites.
But,
I
very different snakes.
I would love to keep copperheads in particular one day, but I've talked about this on the podcast before too. It just doesn't. It's not right to keep them up here where it's so warm and so humid all the time. So
I was going to say they'd be like in a refrigerated room up there. That's crazy.
Yeah, literally. Well, interestingly, in the unit that I'm in now, it hasn't got above 24 degrees in a couple of weeks now in here. It's
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, for where I am, it's chilly.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's super well insulated. Not insulated enough to get copperheads or tiger snakes, but definitely insulated.
It's a whopping 11 degrees outside and 26.1 in here. So
stay in there.
It is. It's very nice. Copperheads are great snakes. That was actually my first elapid that I kept. Got a hold of Nigel Souter, and just said, I want my first venomous snake. I've been doing a lot of reading. Copperhead's apparently got a good nature. I'd love to start with one. And he has quite a few and had one spare at the time. And yeah, it was an awesome snake. And I think it was actually one of the best snakes to learn on because they're big enough for you to handle, but not like everyone says, get a death adder, like they're the best, the best snake to learn on. But I actually think they're the worst because naturally people want to handle it and they want to work with it, and you can't do that with a death adder. And they're really good until they retain like an eye cap or something like that. And then you've got this small, quick snake. You're inexperienced. You have tubes. You know what I mean? Like it's just not.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they're not
ideal.
They're not really indicative. Like they don't behave like any other elapid in Australia either. So it's not going to give you any sort of, experience for if your next snake's a red belly or if your next snake's I don't know, whatever it's going to be. They
Yeah.
just behave so differently, so vastly differently. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that them and probably red bellies are probably the best snakes you can start on. They're fantastic. So
I would agree. Hey, we're getting pretty close to an hour. Have you got anything exciting coming up that you want to talk about?
not overly. To be honest, I think I'm trying to wind down keeping like privately, but part of it's because life's busy, and the other part is me and my partner we want to relocate closer to where she's working now, and we're really lucky to have the space here, but maybe not where we're going to be in the future. So probably just look at keeping the tree snake guys. But that's pretty much it. I keep pretty quiet now, and I'm not breeding a whole lot except for the stuff I don't mean to breed. Like I don't really breed unless it has a purpose. And then these guys just threw a curveball at me. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Can you see
it makes sense.
Can you see that head?
Yes, I can. That's cool.
Little dude's like,
hey,
what's going on?
I think they're a pretty. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, I think they're another pretty clever one. They're always watching and
yeah.
Well,
literally.
I sometimes think they're clever, but then they'll try to eat your hand through the glass, and you're like, yeah, maybe not so clever.
Yeah. That's, and I found the females too are just so much more foodier than the boys. Like my boy will be like, oh no,
100%.
he'll tuck away, and the girls are just like, come here, I'll eat it. It's fine.
I'll
you know
eat
what I mean?
whatever you want.
So,
give me a rat.
Yeah. Yeah. She eats pinky rats, quail chicks, just anything you could throw it over there. She'll eat it. Yeah.
Do you ever feed haired mice? Any adult mice?
I've fed like
I will say, I do.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sometimes
I fed what you probably call a velvet, like small bit of hair on it, but not really. And that's why I like quail chicks, because
quail chicks are
got
good.
That
definitely
dense amount of fur on it. But yeah, I just pinky rats if she's going to get a rat. But I find that I feed a lot less. Like people feed them multiple times a week. If she ate, let's say I give her 2 pinky rats, I might not feed her for a fortnight. Like
same.
She'll be fine.
Yeah, I tend to feed them 3 to maybe 4 times a month. I wouldn't go much more than that, particularly for adults. But the babies, I'm definitely feeding a bit more often, smaller meals, but much more often.
I can confirm I'm feeding a lot of feeder fish at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, good, I get to go order another couple hundred fish. It's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a couple hundred in a facility at Moonlit there somewhere that you could.
Yeah, I don't know how the endangered fish would go on the menu for sure.
If you get desperate,
we've put core flute up so the fish can't see the maclays, because I'm always thinking, what if those fish are thinking is looking across in this other tank and the maclays are like, hello.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
probably wise.
Yeah. No, they can't see. No one can see anyone. So look at that.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Hey, Jamieson, I'm pretty happy, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. Great
awesome.
chat. And thanks for having me again.
No worries. Yeah, it was my pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. And if anyone's looking for you, do you want people looking for you or not really?
I mean, people can look. I'm open to people who want, like, if they have questions or want to seek knowledge for sure. Yeah, I'm pretty private, but yeah, happy for them to reach out. Instagram Jamieson.Brodie or Facebook Jamieson Brodie. Send me a message, and yeah, happy to chat. So
awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Jamieson. I really appreciate it, mate. And as always, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at joemac.uthl. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and following along. Cheers.